Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is DuckFilms, and today I have my updated Season 1.5 tier list for Marvel Rivals. Now, if you don't know who I am, that's perfectly fine, but basically I make Marvel Rivals content each and every single day, whether it be guide videos, hero guides, and even counter videos. So if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, it greatly helps me out, and like the video if you like it. But without further ado, let's dive straight into our first category of Vanguard, kicking things straight off with none other than Dr.Strange. Now, going into patch 1.5 or the mid-patch season, Strange took a hit to his overall health pool, making him slightly more vulnerable. But before that, back in Season 1, he also saw reductions to his shield capacity and AoE damage. And honestly, in my personal opinion, these changes have literally done nothing. Right now, Strange remains one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful tank in the entire game. His kit is like the perfect example of what a Vanguard or tank should be in a game like this. Now, I would even go as far as saying if you don't main Strange, you must know how to play him. There will be crucial moments where swapping to him is the only viable way to recontest an objective, and no other tank can do the job quite like he can. Mainly for the fact that you could touch a point in the very last second with your entire team. And yes, I'm talking about the teleportability, which hands down is one of the best tools for stalling. You can literally be in overtime with your team about to win the point, and lo and behold, all of a sudden there's a Strange portal and your team gets completely wiped and you lose the game. Honestly, if you feel like you're about to lose the point, go ahead, swap to Strange and teleport straight over. There's quite literally no downside to it. Maybe healing for your healers might be a little bit harder to manage because you might be running 3 tanks now, but still a great pick regardless. Now, with such a well-rounded and consistently valuable kit, Dr. Strange remains a cornerstone of high-level play. He is without a doubt a top 2 Vanguard in the entire game, an S-tier powerhouse that any serious players should have in their arsenal. And if you're looking to climb the ranks, mastering Strange is an absolute must. Now, of course, this is all in my opinion and perspective, so you can either agree or disagree. There's nothing wrong about that. That's why I make these types of videos, so there's complete and open discussion. And I truly believe that anybody's opinion is completely valid. Everybody has their own perspectives, which is completely fine. Now, moving down the list, we have Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. Now, for me personally, the Hulk remains an absolute powerhouse in the tank category, even if his presence in matches has become somewhat inconsistent. Now, while the once dominant Iron Man team up is no longer as overwhelming as it used to be, and many assume that was the primary reason for Hulk's frequent play. I mean, which is completely valid. The Gamma team up ability pre-season 1.5 was definitely very strong. Now, for my personal view, for Hulk to be incredibly strong, he had to be in the hands of the right player, because Hulk had a playstyle that allowed you to maintain constant pressure, you could easily control high ground, and you could easily smack around the enemy DPS. And also, he had an incredible time peeling for his strategist if need be. Now, Hulk honestly didn't receive any changes that directly affected, his kit or HP or anything like that in season 1.5. However, the biggest change came to the Gamma team up. And because of that, a lot of players assumed that, Hulk is completely useless now. But honestly, Hulk in the right hands is still a super strong menace to deal with. And honestly, he was banned so much that I feel like a lot of players have no idea how to honestly play him. And honestly, I quite frankly believe he has a super high carry potential. Now, while there are many strong tanks in the current meta, both in the S tier and A tier, Hulk stands out as a pick that can completely dominate when played at a high level. So from a high level perspective, and if you're thinking high level, what does this guy know about high level? Well, currently I'm sitting between Celestial and Eternity, swapping back and forth, so that's just a little bit of my background. But with all of that being said, I think Hulk is placed between, like A+ or S, and because I want to make this chart nice and even, I'm actually going to put him in the S tier. Now, some of you might disagree, but that's completely fine. I'm putting Hulk in the S tier mainly for the purpose he serves, not necessarily for the Gamma team up. But of course, you can agree or disagree, which is, completely fine. But I see a lot of dislikes on tier list videos simply because they don't have the same opinion of the person, commenting, which I find, it's just extremely odd. So again, Hulk is sitting at the S tier for me. Now let's talk about Magneto. He's one of, or quite literally, the best Vanguard currently in all of Marvel Rivals. And you might be thinking, why? In season 1.5, he received some, different changes. First and foremost, his Iron Curtain shield uptime was reduced, meaning you couldn't have your shield up for quite a while now, meaning you need to balance all of your abilities a lot more. With that, he did receive quite a significant damage buff, and that damage buff was to his primary attack, which was increased by 5 damage, which honestly doesn't seem like a lot, but trust me, it literally is. Now, besides being a well-rounded tank, another reason why he was highly picked was mainly because of his ultimate ability, which can quite literally shut down every enemy strategist, defensive ultimate, whether that be Luna Snow, Cloak and Dagger, Invisible Woman, Mantis, basically everything that's supposed to keep you alive. Now with one charged up meatball and decent aim, you never have to worry about, defensive ultimates again. And vice versa, you use your ally bubbles on, your strategist to keep them alive when they're using their ult, so they're not the one eating mom's spaghetti and meatballs. You get it? Never mind. So when it comes to playing as a solo tank, typically the two characters you're looking at is Magneto and Dr. Strange, as they can both solo tank, fairly decent, although Dr. Strange might have a little bit of a harder time, as Magneto has a little bit more sustain. But with all of that being said, Magneto, in my opinion, firmly remains as an S tier tank, bringing immense value, adaptability, and game-winning potential to any team. Now next up we have none other than the God of Thunder himself, Thor. Now Thor is a interesting character. In season 1.5 or the 1.5 patch, he didn't really receive, that many changes or anything, super. I will say some of the changes they made to him made him a lot smoother and simpler to play, and he can definitely dish out a lot more damage. Now you also have to factor in Thor isn't really a main vanguard. He's more like a hybrid off tank. He's essentially a glorified duelist with a little bit more HP. That's how I see him. Now the thing about Thor is I don't think he's, super strong. I think in the right hands he can be strong, but I think this character requires a lot of practice. With that being said, I think he's suited for, higher tier lobbies or higher ranked lobbies, but that doesn't mean you can't play him at the lower ranks. You just might find it difficult or, harder to learn as he's a more complex character. But I feel like if you mastered a hero like Thor, you could easily climb the ranks. Now again, I don't think he's the best vanguard, so I don't think he's quite a S tier pick. If anything, I would place him A+ or A-. I think he sits perfectly fine between S and A, but for the sake of making this, list look, nice and neat, I'm going to be putting him on the A tier. Now moving down the list, we come to Groot, and he's probably one of the most underrated carry tanks in the entire game. People are finally understanding just how strong and capable this vanguard actually is. How could you go wrong with massive damage potential, super insane crowd control abilities, and an ultimate that can turn an entire fight on its own? He also has some very solid isolation tools. Now because he's so strong, he comes with some pretty significant weaknesses, especially against characters that excel in 1v1 situations, like, Winter Soldier or even Wolverine. There's some of the strongest counters to Groot in the entire game. Now with all of that being said, where do I think Groot should be placed? I truly believe Groot belongs in the S tier, but I will say what makes Groot so strong is the individual sitting behind the monitor. Groot is a character that requires a strong foundation, and what I mean by that is you need strong fundamentals. You really have to understand positioning, when and where to place your walls, for example. And you also have to understand when to engage or disengage as Groot. With that being said, Groot has to be undoubtedly placed in the tier of S. Now moving down to our next hero on the list, we have Peni Parker. And Peni is honestly a great character. She has the incredible ability to really control space, shut down key enemy abilities, and apply constant pressure. If played correctly, she can dominate fights in a way that very few other heroes can. But I will say she's only really super effective in the right hands. Now I'm not saying that you watching this video don't have the right hands. I just think this character performs a lot better on certain players. Now I know what you might be thinking. She has an incredibly good win rate. You should place her, S or A. Sure, that can be true, but I think actually putting them in her tier list is rather difficult because I firmly believe that her skill or impact is heavily dependent on the player behind the character. So for an average player, I feel this character might be placed in the B tier. I think she can be, rather strong, but might be unreliable to other players. And for a high skill player who easily understands Peni, knows what to do, how to maintain space and control, for those who know a lot. Moving on to Captain America. Now he's always been a dependable, rock solid tank, and I don't see why he's not good. He received a pretty significant buff in patch 1.5, and I personally believe he belongs in the A tier. I think placing him anywhere below doesn't serve him his justice or, what he deserves. But I don't think I can put him S. I don't think he's at that level yet, but I think he's still a very solid tank. He does well in stalling objectives, applying consistent pressure, and staying alive in situations where most heroes would fail. So I think it's fair, again, to place Captain America in the tier of A. So Venom is the next hero on our list and is a rather interesting hero. In my personal opinion, Venom is a high risk, high reward type of tank that thrives in aggression, dive heavy compositions. If you enjoy playing a fast-paced, disruptive role, then he is absolutely worth learning. However, if you don't have the game sense to know when to engage and when to escape, or if you're not willing to manage bans and adapt to matchups, he might be super inconsistent. he's a very interesting hero. He's someone that can get countered super easily and can feel useless at some points. With that all being said, if you are playing, a dive-centric team composition, I think placing him in the tier list of A is perfectly fine. He has a lot of adaptability and can be good in the right hands. And it's probably best to play Venom when you have a duo like a Spider-Man or something. So here's the thing. He's a very interesting tank. I will say that this Vanguard or tank has a lot of potential. Now you do have to keep in mind that this Vanguard, this tank, this big chunky man is built to fight. If you're not fighting, you're doing something wrong. Now I will say he performs pretty well in different team compositions like dives or frontline or dive in the backline, whatever you want to place him. I think he's very solid. He can easily get in and out of fights, initiate fights with his ultimate, which is also very strong. Of course, if you're paired up with the right other heroes. Now, with all that being said, where do I place this hero? I think the safe pick would probably be B tier because we don't know the full extent of what this hero can actually do in the right hands. But I feel like once he's fully understood and is in the right hands of the right player, I think we can place him in the A tier. So for me personally, I place him between A and B. I think give a little bit more time and he can definitely move up in the tier ranking. Now, before we dive into the DPS or Duelist section of this video, I want to ask you, if you're a new hero or find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed, why not? It's completely free and you're coming back anyways. It's honestly one of the best ways to help me out and it really does make an impact. So make sure to subscribe. But anyways, let's dive straight into Black Panther. So kicking off our Duelist section, we have Black Panther. And I believe he has the potential to single-handedly turn the tide of an entire fight or battle. With insanely high burst damage and unmatched mobility, he excels extremely well in high risk, high reward, playstyles, easily bursting down, the enemy strategist and can quite literally carry. But with that being said, he does come with some faults. You have characters like Loki, Invis Woman, Namor, Peni, Groot, or even a character like Iron Fist that can just completely shut down a Black Panther. And he's also one of the easiest characters to overextend with, so he can be a very risky pick sometimes. Now with that being said, I think he has a lot of potential. I think he's a super strong pick, and you saw in season 1.5 they did receive some changes. Now I think he can excel extremely well in the right circumstances. I mean, his strengths are there, you can see it easily, but I will say his weaknesses hold him back quite a bit. I will say he's a very inconsistent, type of duelist. Because of that, I don't think he's a super, top tier pick. If anything, I would place him in the B tier. I think placing him in the middle is the most fair thing to do. I think it's the safest pick because he's a rather inconsistent character. So next up we have Black Widow. Now Black Widow is a very interesting hero. I think she can be good in the right hands. Now, of course, it has to be in the right hands. If you're playing Widow and you don't have the best aim, it can become quite apparent just how much DPS you're lacking as a team. Now, like I said, there's always those exceptions with players who are extremely good with Widow and can make it, very high into the ladder of ranked. Now, I'm not discrediting anybody of, their skill or performance. I think, in the right hands, again, it can be a very solid character. But I think from a general, consistency or, point of view, whatever you want to call it, or, I think the general community doesn't think this character is too strong. So I'm unfortunately putting her in the C tier. Now, again, I'm not saying that like everyone sees Black Widow as a C tier hero. I think anybody can be good on any hero. It just takes some time. And there's not too many really good Black Widows yet. I think give a little more time and maybe a lot more Widow players will start to emerge. Now, there's already, quite a few Widow players. You see them all across YouTube. So I think that time is getting close. Next up, we have Hawkeye. Now, he's a character that received nerfs, received buffs, received nerfs again, then got buffed again. It's kind of all over the place. But with the recent buffs of season 1.5, he's definitely gotten a lot stronger. Now, for me personally, I think he's a super solid character and can output, decent amount of damage and can get those really needed entry picks to really kick off a fight. I mean, I will say he's, very strong in the right hands, of course, but he's super weak in the wrong hands. Let's be honest. If you don't know, how to time anything, if you don't know how to peek, or if you don't know how to position, you're going to struggle really hard on this character. For me personally, I'm placing Hawkeye at the B tier. I think he can be a very solid pick in the right hands. In the wrong hands, you're probably a lacking to your team. So I think placing him B tier in the middle ground is fair for both sides that want to argue he's good, he's bad, or whatever. So Hela is next on our list, and it's a really interesting character. So season 1.5, brought a buff to Hela. I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't really a buff, it's literally game changing. You can literally 2-tap people from across the map. So I believe the pressure that this character brings is immense and can really make people suffer in the right hands. She has, very good movement if she's in a sticky situation. She has a very strong ultimate that can easily turn the tide of a battle. She has a good CC option. I mean, what's wrong with it? Like, what can go wrong when you pick this character, essentially? I think this character is still S tier. I don't see why we would place her, anywhere lower than S. She's incredibly strong right now. I mean, they should probably fix that you can 2-tap from across the map, but I mean, maybe that's what they intend for. I'm not 100% sure. It's kind of weird, but it's definitely, very strong right now. So she definitely has to be S currently. Now, at the time of recording this, it's February 26th currently, but who knows, by the time this video is released, maybe March 3rd, maybe this is fixed, I don't know, but currently she is super strong. Now, the next hero is none other than Iron Fist, and he received some insane changes for season 1.5. He can easily dominate and brawl with tanks and, take down squishies. He can do everything, essentially. I think Iron Fist for season 1.5, currently is a super solid pick. I think he's very good and still kind of underrated. He's very solid in coordinated team compositions where his new kit can be fully utilized to maximum effect. Again, he's pretty much like a jack of all trades. He can do everything. So I think it's fair to put him in the tier of A. I don't think he should be placed any lower, but I don't think he has the same impact, say, a Hela does, so I don't think he, is S. So I think putting him in the tier of A is perfectly safe, and I think it's pretty valid. So what's the deal with Iron Man? Well, the Gamma team-up got nerfed a little bit, like his damage output from it, but he did get a buff to his entire kit, which makes his damage output a lot stronger. He's definitely a lot more polished and can easily be played without the Gamma team-up now. Now, I wouldn't say he's amazing, I wouldn't say he's terrible, I think he's okay. Now, in the right hands, he can be, extremely exceptional. Just like with any hero in this game, in the right hands can be like super dominant. But I think placing him in the middle ground of B is completely fair because there's some people that think he's rather weak while others think he's really strong. And I think always, doing the middle ground is perfectly fine because he can easily be shut down by a Hela or even a Hawkeye or a Punisher. So it might not make him the best suitable pick. But if you want to pick him in your game, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. Again, I think he's middle of the ground B tier. Now let's talk about Magik. She received both a nerf and a buff for season 1.5. Now her nerf was to her, demon she spawns. It does, less damage, but the trade-off for that is that she's going to be getting her ultimate a lot faster. And while the damage reduction to her demon does, might mess up some of her combos, I think she's still a pretty solid pick. I think if you have a really good understanding of the character, regardless of season 1.5, I think you will still do perfectly fine on it. With that being said, I don't think she's middle of the ground. I think she's a bit better. So with that being said, I think I can firmly place her at the A tier. I don't think there's any way she can be below that, and I don't think she can be S. Because when I think of the S tier, I think of Hela, and I can't really compare Magik to Hela, because Hela can 2-tap Magik, right? So I mean, it's hard to, try to balance the two per se. So Moon Knight is a rather interesting character. Now, he was very strong for quite a while because his ultimate was quite literally broken, and he, excelled very well in triple support metas, or, this metas where people are super clumped up together. He excelled at that because he could do a lot of damage. But because people are playing, more mobile characters, it becomes harder for Moon Knight to really have, a large impact. So because there isn't like a ton of data as of currently after season 1.5 on Moon Knight, I think putting him at, C tier, even though it hurts me to say this, I think putting him there is fine. Now, I know I'm kind of speeding through these. It's because I don't want to take a ton of your time. I just want to give you, solid points and then the tier they're at. There's some videos that can take, an hour, or like 40 minutes or 50. I'm not the type of person to take a ton of your time. Namor, Neymar Jr., Mr. Ocean, whatever you want to call him, he is your anti-dive king. He's, the best at dealing with dive characters, and because Spider-Man got a buff and is, played a lot now, he is usually either banned or most picked. And I think just because how strong this character is, and because, how well he performs against a majority of the characters in the entire roster, I'm honestly putting him S tier. or maybe between S and A. I think it's perfectly fine. This character is strong in the right hands and can be even strong in the wrong hands, literally because you have aimbot turrets that shoot for you. I think once people finally start to understand just how impactful this character is, it's gonna like dominate lobbies. It's just, you know, way too good to pass up on. Next up on the list, we have Psylocke. Now, Psylocke, of course, is a super strong DPS and is still a super viable duelist. Now, she was getting picked less because of the triple support meta, and because of that, she literally can't kill anybody. But now, since people are starting to go away from that, it's becoming, you know, a lot easier to play her. And with that being said, she's getting picked more and more because you don't have to worry about that triple support ruining your life anymore. And with that being said, I'm placing her in S tier. I don't think Psylocke can be placed anywhere lower. I think in the right hands, she can completely, you know, carry or just completely control the game. And even in the wrong hands, she still does a significant amount of damage, so just no going wrong when picking her. Now, I do have to say again, if you're finding this video entertaining or useful to you, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Now, I only remind you because if I don't, no one's ever going to click it. At least that's what I've seen. Now, when it comes to the Punisher, I think this character is solid. He's very good into Groot or Dr.Strange, you know, burning their shields. I think, you know, he's very solid taking care of that. I think using his shotgun to shred down, you know, tanks, especially if Wolverine is banned, is very helpful and beneficial. He can output a lot of damage if paired up with a Rocket Raccoon with the unlimited ammo. Again, very solid. Now, with that being said, I don't think he's S tier. I don't, you know, necessarily believe he's B tier, middle of the pack. I think he's A tier. I think putting him A tier is perfectly fine. So Scarlet Witch, I no longer believe she is C tier. I think because of Cloak and Dagger and Luna's Snow and Invisible Woman ultimates, because of these ultimates, I think her ultimate is a direct counter and she's getting picked a lot more. And I think because Magneto's getting picked so much, I think picking up Scarlet Witch is okay. Mainly for the fact that the team up is very strong, and if you get the Magneto to bubble you while you're ulting, I think she is also very strong. Now, I don't think she's insane, like, you know, the Punisher or, you know, Iron Fist. I think she's middle of the pack B tier. Now, that's quite a few steps up from, you know, my last tier list where she was like, you know, I put her in like useless tier. I think putting her at B is perfectly fine. Now let's talk the icky sticky Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man receives some pretty insane buffs. You know, he's definitely a lot better than what he used to be. Now, one of the trickiest things when it comes to, you know, Spider-Man is that you have to be pretty mechanically solid to play him. And there's not too many Spider-Mans that are exceptionally good that make the character seem super strong. Sure, you might see them sometimes, you know, around in your ranked lobbies, but it's honestly not that much. And because of Namor, just how strong that character is, it's pretty hard to play Spider-Man. I don't think he's, you know, unbearably bad anymore, but I think it's fair to put him middle of the pack again at the B tier. Now, there's some characters that just seem better than others, but again, he's just B tier. So, Squirrel Girl. This is a interesting character. I think she's really good. I think she, you know, honestly decimates, you know, certain maps and certain choke points. I think she just completely excels. I mean, there's a lot of points that make her, you know, very useful to pick, especially if you're against a character like Groot, you know, is just placing walls everywhere and make everything super compact. I think placing Squirrel Girl in the tier of A is actually perfectly fine. I think this character is very solid. Now, Starlord is the next on the list, and he didn't really receive, you know, any changes in Season 1.5, but I still think he's a super solid DPS and a slept on character. I personally believe this character sits between S and A, and I lean towards more of the S tier. I just think there's so much use for his entire kit pretty much all the time that it's pretty hard to ignore. And if you pair it with the right characters, Starlord can literally, you know, just take control of games. It can be pretty annoying facing a very good Starlord player. Trust me, I know. Now, moving on to our next hero on the list, we have Storm. Now, she did receive some nerfs for Season 1.5. Nothing, you know, super insane. She's still amazing. She's still S tier, there's no doubt about it. She's a lot more useful to her team because of her buffs that she received, but she does do less damage because of the nerfs she received. But with that being said, she still is one of the highest banned characters in the entire game and is still incredibly insane if you actually get to play her, so she's S hands down. Now, for our next hero, we have, you know, Winter Soldier or Bucky. Let's be honest, this character is insane. He received some changes that made him a whole lot stronger. He's S tier. There's no arguing. If you argue against him being, you know, S tier, then you're not playing the same game as I am. If he's not picked in your lobby, chances are he's banned if you're diamond and up, just because how strong this character actually is. Now, our next hero, we have Wolverine, and he did not receive any changes for season 1.5, so he is just as strong as he was in season 1, so he's permanently banned pretty much in every single game you play if you're diamond and up. So he's, always picked. So he's S tier. Again, no changes were made from, season 1 to 1.5. I mean, yeah, he's S. I don't know what else to say. Now, next up is Mr. Fantastic, and he received some changes, although they're not the best for him. He did receive some. I don't think this character is particularly good in terms of being a duelist. Again, he's seen more as a off-tank or, DPS Vanguard hybrid type of character. And with that being said, I think it's safe to say to put him in the middle of the road. I think B is perfectly fine. I don't think he's insanely good. I don't think he's insanely bad. He can definitely be annoying in the right hands. Next up is the character a lot of people have been asking for. Now, the Human Torch is a rather interesting hero. I think he is capable of doing a ton of damage if played properly. It does take quite a bit to fully understand how the hero works and to be truly successful. But the thing is, you have things to worry about like Hela, Storm, and even, Winter Soldier to deal with. So when it comes to placing, the Human Torch, I don't think there's too much data on where this character actually belongs. And I'm honestly going to be putting him in the C tier. But of course, there's always exceptions of players who can play him extremely well and can easily carry. But those, exceptions are pretty rare. Now, diving straight in with Adam Warlock, he did receive some buffs, both for, damage and his healing capacity. Now, don't get me wrong, Adam Warlock is a solid healer and a pretty good, flex DPS kind of. But I don't think he's, amazing. I don't think he's S tier. I think he sits firmly at A. I think maybe if he did a little more healing or maybe, a little, more damage. This is hard. I think he just sits at A. Now, Cloak and Dagger did receive some changes with season 1.5. She got nerfed with her ultimate, how long it takes to get it. And they changed how her ult works so you can't, stack healing on top of each other. Now, I think Cloak and Dagger is still a very solid healer. There's nothing wrong with it. But with being that said, I think she sits at A. I don't think she's no longer S at all. I think she sits at A. Now, Jeff is a rather interesting character. He's kind of hit or miss. He acts like a DPS. He's a support. It's just weird. I mean, he's alright. He kind of lacks in the healing department. And, if you play him as a damage, you need at least 3 supports. With that being said, I place him in the middle of the road. I put him B tier. Yeah, he's alright. Now, when it comes to Loki, I've always said I think Loki's an amazing healer. He's definitely between S and A. Since my first ever interaction with this character, I always thought this character was amazing. Some people put him A, some people put him S, and for me, I'm putting him S because I truly believe he's a super solid pick. Even though he kind of got nerfed, he's still, very good all around. Now for this next one, I'm kind of combining both Luna and Mantis. With Luna falling in the category of the S tier, she's still super good, and she's even stronger because of her team up with Namor, making him, even better. Then when it comes to Mantis, she's still an A. She got nerfed back in, season 1, and she's just kind of been the same ever since. No changes in season 1.5, so she's sitting A still. Now, Rocky Raccoon is, honestly, I think he's a solid, healer, and he provides very useful utility for your entire team. Whether you want to admit it or not, or listen to the bigger streamers that really don't know anything, go ahead. But I don't think you understand just how impactful Rocket Raccoon can actually be. Now, you could, say you're fighting, it's like the first 30 seconds of the game. One of your teammates gets picked. Typically, if you don't have that res, you're just going to get ran over because you're down somebody. But because you have that res, your teammate is back in the fight right away. And he gets his res every 45 seconds. So it's like, why not have him on your team? Well, people get the misconception that, he's bad or, not the best. But you need to leave that misconception behind and grow up. If you think because you only have one defensive ult on your team, you're going to lose the game. Well, if you think that way, you're going to lose. I don't think you understand just how impactful his ultimate can actually be. Now, with all that being said, he is going to be placed in the A category because, he's not amazing enough to be put in the S tier, but he's not terrible. He's not bad at all to be placed in B, C, or, even F. Now, Invis Woman is another, super solid pick that I honestly think is S tier. I think she provides very good healing. She, has her entire kit is useful, let's be honest. She has some pretty good survivability when it comes to Magneto trying to ult her. She can, go away and jump and hide, go invisible. She provides super crucial healing that your entire team needs, and she can heal multiple targets at once. She has the ability to, push or pull people in or away, and she can also do quite a lot of damage. I mean, I don't think placing her anywhere besides S is reasonable. I think she's way too good to not be playing in any of your ranked games. Now you pair an Invis Woman or a Luna Snow with a Loki, then I think you have a match that's literally unstoppable. But there you have it, that's my updated tier list for season 1.5. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And of course, if you're new here or find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed, why not? It's completely free and it greatly helps me out. I try to, push content out every single day that's super helpful or informative to you that is playing Marvel Rivals. But again, I hope you have a great day and I'll catch you in the next one.